Tell me what the hell are you scared of when in the end the only
Where's the love? Right here on this podcast. Welcome to Love Drops, where your hosts and One Love ambassadors, Charles and Diane, will share love, hope, and inspirational topics taken from their journey and world events. We will also include on location recordings and special pop up guests from cool places all around the world. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
whether big or small, love never fails. Oh, love it conquers all. Love never fails.
Welcome to the Love Drops podcast, where Diane and I have the opportunity to introduce fantastic guests on our show from all over the world. And today we have another fantastic guest on our show. And Diane will have the opportunity as well to introduce her. Diane, will you introduce our guest to our listeners?
Thank you, Charles. I sure will. And our guest today is Debra Klein. Debra is an award-winning leader. In 2025, she was the recipient of the INSPRA Distinguished Service in Leadership Award for her career-long commitment to educational excellence. Debra is an author, researcher, mentor, and lecturer. Currently, Debra is focused on helping leaders create kind and playful learning environments, sharing what she's learned in her career with the next generation of school leaders. So, with that said, Debra, you have the mic.
Well, good morning. I could listen to the two of you just all day. I love you've got the perfect voices for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's an honor and a privilege to be with you today. And I am so grateful that I get to talk about something that I am quite passionate about, which is number one, children and their health and growth and how we can inspire them. And I never realized until I was an adult the impact that a good leader has on an environment, on a community. And so my work has really led me into how can I walk alongside other leaders and help them create more meaningful, more engaging environments so that our students thrive, but also so that they thrive. Because I think all of us know if you've been fortunate enough to have a child in your home, they are very intuitive. They can be little infants who can manipulate us to come and hold them or, with a little squeak and tell us, please feed me. They're very wise. And I don't think we always give children the credit that they deserve. So if you as a leader, whether it's a leader of a classroom, whether it's a leader of your home, if it's not a safe, authentic, engaging place to be, children know that. And so I believe they're not learning at their full capacity if they're not feeling like it's a place where I'm safe to just be me.
Yes, 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 yes. And we do, as adults, have the responsibility to create those safe places. And I believe firmly that it takes a village. I believe putting it on just one person is just too much because you're not going to be able to cover all bases because we all have our own gifts.
Yes, and with dealing with children, it goes a lot deeper than just spoken words. Their feelings, they feel it deep inside. They know when they're loved. They know when there's danger that's around them or things of that nature. So we can learn a lot from the children as we help them help us as well.
Yes, yes. And so, Deborah, I want to just jump into our topic. And so, our topic is leadership activating the next generation. So, I know that you started in the elementary sector of education and you worked your way up all the way through high school, principalship, mentor, writing books, getting awards. So, let's just dive in and speak on how that resonates for you.
Just to clarify, I really spent all of my career in the elementary realms. Right now, I work some preschool, so some early childhood. But basically, I've taught every grade, kindergarten through fifth, and I've been a leader of schools that were elementary grade.
Okay.
I don't want to give the perception that I know a lot about high school and middle school. Smaller, so I don't get much, bigger than fifth graders. Um, but I have taught at the college level as well too. And you know how you have a vision in your head of what you think you want to be and what you want to do. And I always laugh because my plan is never really the plan. It always goes in a different direction and it's usually better, right? And so
Yeah.
my plan was to retire in 2024. And my father had been very ill, and I wanted to be home to assist my mom with any of his care. And so also, in full transparency, school had changed quite a bit in the sense of we were coming out of COVID. I think a lot of parents were feeling a great weight of angst. And we all know that the world we live in at the moment is not necessarily conducive to calmness in the way we approach one another. And so I was finding myself kind of down about, so proud of how we had built this great community and a collaborative community and a welcoming community. And then we were confronted with people that were angry. And I'm an empath. So there's only so much of that I felt like I could do. And so I put in for retirement. I retired for literally about 10 minutes. I was packing up my office and my phone rang. And my boss asked if I would go to a school where the principal unexpectedly had to leave. And I said, no, thank you. That's so kind, but no, thank you. And anyway, all the barriers I put up to that opportunity were quickly taken down. And I, by the grace of God, was given time with a good friend and colleague who came with me to act as like an assistant principal. And we went over to the school together. And then my dad passed away. And I think about that a lot, about how it was the most horrific time. And yet, if I hadn't been at that school, I would be drowning in sorrow, because little kids and parents, they do not let you can't wallow, right? They need you. They need your time and your attention. And so I'm kind of all over the place. I apologize. But my point to this being, it ended up being the greatest gift was to go and be a principal in another school, another elementary school. It introduced me to so many new people. And one of the parents I met is who actually led me to meeting you.
Oh,
And
wow.
and so that goes to Valerie Probstfeld, a wonderful person. And so that path of, you ask in those 35 years, how did I get to all of these? It's through the little tiny connections that you make along the way, the little tiny, oh, this is not what I want to do, but the path is showing me this is the way I'm going, and trusting in that and going that direction. And holy cow, I mean, that's how I started working with principals and mentoring coaches, is just those little nuggets of people along the way, or opening an email and
Yeah.
being surprised at who's this person? Where is this path going to go? So I'm just grateful. I'm grateful I have the opportunity this year to do some writing. I'm grateful I have the opportunity to do some research with children and play in classrooms. And for all those children who are now adults and raising children of their own. What an incredible gift that is to have had thousands of people in my life that I've actually had a close, meaningful relationship with through my work.
Yes, that is beautiful. And that is education. That is the greatest gift of education, is watching those that you water into with love, with wisdom nuggets, with trust and leadership to bloom and then someday become leaders themselves, right? And so, it's that saying that says the teacher becomes the student, becomes the teacher, right? And so I, worked in education. I was a college professor for nursing, right? And so I am still connected with many of my students, and I'm actually interviewing a student Friday for the podcast. And so weddings, baby showers, all kinds of big announcements. Your life literally entwines into the lives of those that you are leading, and they become more than students. They start as students, but they become friends, they become like family, right? And so the impact is tremendous, and Charles knows this as well.
Yes, and dealing with our students, passing things on to them and seeing them grow. Wow, that's a gift within itself. And when you're talking with them, you say, has it been that long? Has it been that long? Like when Diane was mentioning about students, I do have one student. I teach a lot of holistic health. And my oldest student, he will be 103 this year. That is a true gift within itself. So when we're passing things on and seeing it, or planting seeds and seeing how they grow, that is a gift within itself.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Deborah. What has been some of the joy that you've experienced in activating that leadership in your students? Because as you mentioned, these are elementary students, right? And so then you see them come back with their kids, or just as adults. So what has been some of the joys that help you keep going?
Well, I've actually three students that I taught have all been teachers, that three of them. And I think that's pretty amazing to think that they came back and they were the most qualified ones to hire, and I mean, that's a full circle moment. When I think about raising the next group of leaders, I think of two things. I think about our young people in college right now. And I think about our new hires, our teacher new hires. They come so eager, and I think sometimes naive to how challenging the job is, because it is. I mean, next to parenting, I think it's probably one of the most challenging, rewarding jobs at the same time. And I think about how do we keep them, and how do we keep them motivated and engaged and find, that light doesn't burn out. And the same with children. And I think there's a couple of things. One, it's my responsibility to know those children, to know those teachers wholly, to know my student teachers wholly. And by that, I mean taking the time to play with and create those environments where people let down their guard a little bit and share their story. And so as a teacher leader, I would tell my staff, I might make some of you uncomfortable because you're going to know all about me. I mean, if I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
So if you see me looking not myself, now oh, she's not mad at me, or, oh, something happened at the district office, or, oh, she already told us today's a hard day. And by modeling that and then creating activities and an environment where teachers also do that with each other and with me, the communication becomes so much better, right? That it feels safer. So I know I have a safe place at school. My classroom might be really hard today. A child might be acting up and I might need a break. And I'm in a safe place where I can say to a colleague, I need to tap out for a minute.
Yes.
And we do that for each other because we care about each other. And so we do that with kids. It's sometimes harder with the little kids to really know what they're feeling because they don't even know what they're feeling, right? So how do we do that? We play. We give them opportunities in dramatic play to act out what's going on in their world. We give them art, all different types of materials so that they can express themselves artistically. We put musical instruments out so they can sing and perform and dance. Or the introvert, there's puzzles or writing, or, I'm providing all different kinds of materials and opportunities. One, so you can feel safe and express yourself. But two, it's a window into your world for me as a leader so that I can, like you said, water those seeds. Oh, I know now you're a very artistic child. That's going to be my tool I use as an inroad into knowing.
That's perfect.
And that is fantastic that you're showing and talking with them that you are a real person also. They can talk with you, they can interact with you. And then that takes off the rough edges, saying that I am, you are, we are.
Yes, I love that. And that's so perfect. We had a friend on who is an artist, and he made a statement that I'm going to share, and it is let your children see you in totality. So if you're having a hard day or if you're struggling, instead of trying to hide those struggles from the kids, let them know, hey, I'm struggling right now. And that gives them the total view. And that also takes from them that need to try to get to perfection because they feel like you never struggle. And if they struggle, it's something wrong with them. So it's like give them the whole span, right? You know, as a grandma or nana with my grandkids, especially from when they're very little, like you said, really little kids have challenges sometimes expressing their emotions. So what I would do is I'd say, hey, do you need a moment? And if they say, yeah, and I say, okay, go on over there and take a moment. And when you're ready, come on back over and join us. And they would do it. And the coolest part of that was sometimes they'd say, Nana, I need a moment. And oh my God, my heart would just melt because I knew that it was transferring. They were getting it, right? They were getting it. And I make sure that I let them know that you can feel whatever you feel. If you feel like sharing, share. If you don't. I don't make them feel like they have to share. I think that's an imposition to place on them. And I think I got that because I was the oldest child and I was made to share. And what that did is it took me to a stingy season. My sister said, oh my God, you just wouldn't share because I was forced to do it. But when allowed, right? When allowed to make that choice, what you will see is they will make the choice to share more so than not because that is what they want to do, but they want to have that choice. So I feel like, you know, just giving the choice to our children and even those that we are mentoring, those that we are leading, those that we are helping, that choice is what is the foundational thing of success in any of it.
Yes, and in dealing with the children, if you will, we learn a lot from them as well. From our grandkids, I learned some things when they're saying yes or when they say no. You know, it's just generic, it's right there on the surface. But if it goes beyond that, we get no, a hard no. So they'll express it. No, that is that a no or a hard no? And
Nana created that. They mimicked me because they would say things and I would say, sure. Or I would say no and they would push. And so I would push back and I'd be like, look, that's a hard no. And so as we just evolved in our communication and I asked them something, they say, no, Nana, that's a hard no, Nana. I'm like, oh, wow.
so I got that from a seed that Diane had planted. And then it grew, and I got a hard no
You
out.
got a hard no.
I got a hard no.
I love it. I think you hit on something really, really important, though, for children and for adults, right? For children, half the time, they don't have the vocabulary. So you're asking them to debrief with you, like after they've had a tantrum, let's say, and they might not even have the word. Like going back to what you're saying, the importance of choice, they might show you by building something out of Legos that leads you to open a conversation that maybe then they'll talk to you about it. But not every child is willing or even able, because they might not have the vocabulary or be able to speak to share what's actually going on. They might not even understand what's going on. So I think you hit on a key piece that we don't always have the vocabulary. And I'm going to forward that to our future leaders too. I don't think we as leaders always have the appropriate vocabulary on how to have crucial, difficult conversations with one another. You know, as I prepare young leaders, I will say to them, and they're creative and full of energy and all the things you want, and they're not ready for the thing that I wasn't ready for, and that's having difficult conversations. And that's key. And, you know, I think it's another thing I was pushed into, being forced to learn how to do. How do I do that? But I didn't have the vocabulary, even as an adult, to say, well, your performance wasn't great today. You know, how do I approach that conversation when I'm talking to a lovely, lovely person that's doing their best and yet it's not working? And so I just think what you're talking about choice, I think as adults presenting things as choice as well, you know, in the way we ask our questions allows us to be better leaders too. It opens the door for somebody to share their, I'm all about stories. If I know your story, it sometimes changes my perception completely and makes me, I hope, a much better person.
That is so spot on. Just knowing the story and getting to knowing that story is communication. So it has to be effective communication on both ends. Not only that, you have to allow the space for them to share their story, right? You have to allow yourself the grace to not judge their story, because some stories that come, you be like, oh my God. It's like, oh, share your story. I'm here for it. And then you get it, you're like, oh my goodness. Whew. I'm not sure I was ready for that, because it blows you away. And it's the way that we respond to those blown away stories as leaders that will activate and enable trust, or that will just throw up a wall that is hard to scale. It's our response. So I know, like, when I was teaching my students, I had a rule, and that rule was no one left behind, because I was teaching graduate nursing students and I was putting them out on the floor with other nurses. And I did my due diligence and research and talk to try to match with the best nurses for the students to have the most effective learning experiences, right? Sometimes you didn't get what you thought you were getting. So what I would do is I gave my students a code they could text me. And the text was SOS. If I got an SOS text from my student, without question, I would come and I would grab that student. I would take them out of the environment. I would say, hey, I need to grab them for 5 minutes. I need to have a quick one-on-one with them. And we would go away and they would tell me if the situation was something workable where I could give them the tools to help them make it through, then I would put them back with the nurse. But if I found that it was just like, yeah, you're not going to get any learning today, because they wanted the student to maybe be the grunt runner, and then I would pull my student. I would be like, you know what? Thank you so much for, offering to mentor, but I need to take them to another assignment. And by doing that, it not only challenged my students to be the best that they could be, but it also allowed them to know, I got you back. And you don't have to encounter that difficult
Mhm.
scenario. I got you.
Yeah.
That trust is everything.
And in the areas of communication and vocabulary, it's changing every day, and the meaning is changing. And Diane was mentioning in talking with her students, talking with them, not at them,
Yes.
talking with them. So you get that two-way communication going on, and they don't mind talking with you.
Yes. You said something really important too. And it's my little tagline, I guess you'd say, that I sign all of my emails with. And it says, assume goodness and give grace. And this is why I think this is a powerful story. So there was an employee that I had who I come to find out the police came and visited my school because her spouse was getting arrested. It was for a terrible thing and it was a terrible situation. And I knew it would be all over the news. And so I pulled my staff together after school and I started with those words. Right now, we are going to assume goodness of our colleague and we're going to give grace, because what's going on with their spouse is not her story. We don't know her story, but we are going to walk beside her unless we're given reasons not to. So we're not going to make judgments. We don't know what's going on. Let's put ourselves in her shoes. What would it be like to come to work tomorrow? That's going to be hard. We've got to put on our best selves and walk with her. So that's where those words came from. And then I've used them ever since. And it's mostly to remind myself, because it's very easy to be judgmental these days about what somebody may be thinking or doing or saying, what the meaning behind it is. And so I try really hard to assume that people are coming at me with goodness, and also assume we're all going to mess up and give grace when we make those mistakes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, man, this conversation has just zoomed by, Deborah. So, what I'd like to do at this point is just ask you, what love drop can you give to our future generation of leaders that will activate in them a power to just really do better, go harder, keep going?
That is a good question. I'm amazed at how many people walk by me each day and I'll smile at them and they don't even acknowledge, your presence. And I just think the little things we can do, like intentionally stopping at the grocery store instead of zooming through that line, stopping and saying, "Thank you so much for your help today." Or noticing a family at a restaurant where the children they're all engaged. They're not all on iPhones. They're all engaged with one another and stopping and saying, "What a lovely family you have that you all are talking together." I mean, I think as parents and as members of a community, we get feedback, right? Oftentimes a middle finger down the road or something not nice, right? I'd like to provide people with positive feedback as much as possible to be really intentional. So, like, my intent right now is I write one positive postcard and send it to somebody unexpectedly every day. So, if we could all do that in our own little way, just one, that ripple effect of "I see you and I actually want to hear your story." If we can do that, what a much lovelier place it would be.
Wow.
Well, I have to comment on that because Diane, she sends out a lot of love drops, words of wisdom,
She does.
almost on a daily basis.
I know I got to receive some. I love it.
Okay, well, I rest my case.
Yes, I so resonate with what you're saying. Let's be the change that we want to see. Yes, we have a choice. We can focus on what is heavy, or we can put our intentions on what is light. We can see what is wrong, or we can do what is right. And what is right, it just depends on the situation, right? What is right is assume goodness and give grace. That's right. That's right. And it covers a myriad of things, just what is the situation, right? I would like to have grace placed upon me if I drop the ball at any point, right? So if that is what I would like to have, that is what I'm going to give.
You are
That
right.
is what I'm going to give, and the most effective way I feel to gauge your role as a leader, especially a leader making a difference, is by those that you lead, by those that come up from your watering, right? When you can see your message, not spoken, but lived in the lives of those that you watered into, yeah, you're doing it right. You're
Yes.
doing it right. And that is the biggest thank you over anything else. That is the biggest thank you because we know that we're creating a ripple effect of continuum. So it just keeps getting poured in. It's just pour in, pour in, pour in, pour in. So, Deborah, it has been such a pleasure just speaking with you here in the virtual studio from Dominican Republic. And where are you at in the world today?
Well, I am in Wheaton, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago.
Okay, okay. And how's the weather?
You know what? The sun is peeking out and they say about 70 degrees today, so I will take it. It sounds heavenly.
Oh yeah, oh
Right.
yeah. So
Yep.
Charles,
Getting that breeze off of Lake Michigan.
I'm not close enough for that, doggone it. I'll fan
Well,
on.
right.
enjoy where you are then.
I
Enjoy where you are.
We are Michiganders, so like yeah, we know that whole thing and the coolness that comes in the winter, probably why we're in the DR right now. But
enjoy and soak in that sunshine.
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. So, as I say to all of our guests, thank you, Deborah, for joining us. Your time is non-refundable, and we appreciate it. I will put any information in the show notes for our viewers, best ways to get in touch with you. Maybe there's leaders or just people that are really resonated with your message and maybe want to work with you as a coach or, just leader. Yeah, and I invite our listeners to do Get in touch with Deborah. She's so much more goodness, wisdom, and light in her story, right? And also, if this episode resonated, please share it with others. If the podcast resonates, please subscribe and also share it. And until next time, Charles and I will sign off with
One love.
Never a second will I waste, never an opportunity to taste the sweetness of this life.
Thank you for tuning in to the Love Drops podcast. Be sure to follow this podcast and share the love with everyone you know. Until next time, this is Charles and Diane signing off. One love. One love.
Love it conquers all. Love never